tuned in to Ask the Good Doctor, live each and every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, and 10 a.m. Pacific. Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire is here to answer your questions live.
Hi there. What do you know? It's Wellness Wednesday. I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire. Welcome to Ask the Good Doctor, and we are here to help you attain, maintain, and reclaim your perfect health. And today we are back to close out our series on Black Music Month and doing something extraordinary. I'd like for you to grab your Good Doctor notebooks and make a note of what this gentleman has to share with us today. He is Idris Ackamoor, founder of the Jazz Pyramids, and they have been around, wait a minute, for 50 years. Get that. I would like to welcome him now. Thank you for joining us, Idris. How are you?
Oh, well, Joyce, I'm doing wonderfully. It's just a wonderful day, and I am thrilled to be here.
I am so happy to have you. This has been a long time coming. I just want to jump right in as we celebrate Black Music Month. You are a pioneer, and people may have heard your music but don't know your name. And I just want to clear that up. I want to shed some light on some of the extraordinary things that you have accomplished as a musician all of these years. But first, I want you to tell us how it came to be that you even became interested as a little boy from Chicago in music.
Yeah, Chicago, Chi-Town. Well, you know, my parents were very, very motivated to have their kids get some culture. Mm-hmm. So I began taking music lessons by the time I was 7 or 8 years old. All the kids. You know, I have 5 brothers. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. But we all had the opportunity to take music lessons. And I can remember those early years going down to Lon and Healy, downtown Chicago. Had to get on the L, had to get on the bus, then get on the L, go down to Lon and Healy, and take violin lessons, trumpet lessons, clarinet lessons. And then there was a band in my neighborhood out around 73rd and Champlain. It's hard for me to remember, but we had a neighborhood band that was happening for a couple of years. Yeah, and it was a woman who was the instructor, but I was like 7 or 8 years old, so you can imagine. The only thing I remember during that time was we had a recital, and I was playing trumpet. I was like maybe 9, about 10 years old or something. I was playing trumpet, and I was so excited to go to the band recital. Then, you know, I got up, I got dressed, you know, I put on my Sunday best, and I rushed out the door, but I forgot my trumpet. You know, so I ended up having to play the triangle, you know, a little hit the triangle.
Yes.
You know, so that was one of my early childhood memories.
Oh my goodness. Recently, you headlined the late Guess Who Jazz Festival. And it was to commemorate your 50th anniversary in music and your founding the Jazz Pyramids. How did you come to put together the group, the Jazz Pyramids?
Well, the Pyramids began when I was a student at Antioch College, Yellow Springs, Ohio. I got there in like the fall of '69, but by 1971, I decided that they had this program called Antioch Education Abroad. So it was actually in early '72, I applied for the program, and I told them that I wanted to go to Europe and form a band. I didn't know the name of the band, you know. All I know, I wanted to go to Europe and form a band, and then I wanted to go to Africa for 9 months and study African music, culture, and social society. So myself at that time and my college girlfriend, Margot Simmons, she played flute, and I was a saxophone. I was on mostly alto saxophone. I put together this proposal, and that was one of my first proposals, almost like a grant, but it was a proposal that you had to write academically. And that's I received. They loved the idea of going to Africa, but they wanted me to go to a university, because most of the programs you'd have to go to a university and study at another university. But I asked them, well, I want to go on my own plans, and they allowed for me to go. All I had to do was go to the University of Besançon in France and study 6 weeks of French. And then I was on my own with with me, Margot, and the other student, Kimathi, played bass. And so for a year, they gave us a round the world ticket.
Whoa!
And we could stop anywhere in a circle. And so we formed the band in Paris. Actually, we formed it in Besançon, which was only like, maybe 35, 45 minutes from Paris. But we went to Amsterdam, where we started to perform professionally. We performed for 3 months, and then we departed for Africa.
Wow. That's amazing, because you said you wrote it, and you know what? You have not, because you asked not. And you had the nerve to ask, and God granted you what you requested is what happened. Yeah. And it all really kicked off for you, though, in Amsterdam.
Yes, we arrived in Amsterdam, and it was like, hey, we're the Pyramids. Can we want to book a show, And in those days, this was fall 1972.
Wow.
I had never been out of the country. I knew very little about Holland, the Netherlands, or Europe, or anything. I was like, 21 years old. And this was my first experience out of the country. I knew nothing about Europe. So I was kind of like a divine message for me to do this. I mean, this was like right at the height of, the Black Power, as the Black Power movement was going on in 68, 69, 70, 71. And for many years, Africa was not a good word for most Black Americans. It was like, it was always because we were brainwashed.
Yeah.
The idea that Africa was about Tarzan and cannibals and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I knew that wasn't true. Even then, I was in high school, because, but I never thought that I could go to Africa. But because of my upbringing, because of my mother, my father, they instilled in me this desire to learn and to find out, the truth. And so that was my year of finding the truth.
And how did going to Africa influence you musically?
Well, it basically set my whole musical foundation. Because not only did I study and play with indigenous musicians in Ghana, up north, I took a spiritual journey, myself and Margot, up into what they call the bush of Ghana. We went way up into we went to Tamale, Kumasi first, and we stopped in Tamale, which is northern Ghana, and we studied and performed with the Dagomba people. We performed with the king's drummers, the prayer drummers of the Dagomba people, for a week. And then we went up to Bogatanga, which is the very extreme north of Ghana. And we performed with the Fra musicians, and we performed at the ceremonies. We performed at the burial of second burial of a Fra king. And I also underwent a spiritual initiation in the bush with basically a juju doctor.
Wow.
A juju doctor who basically performed this ceremony called the washing of the legs, where he washed my legs with juju, with the magic of the ancestors, African ancestors, so that I could walk around the world unmolested.
Wow.
Yeah, in this little bitty hut. I mean, out in the bush, nothing was around. I was in this bush, and he was performing this ritual. So yeah, it was a time of incredible artistic and spiritual enlightenment.
That's transformative. I can imagine that after that, you were really brand new. And like you said, it was helped you foundationally. But for this to be your first experience abroad, how that changed you as a man.
Absolutely. It really did. I mean, I'm still experiencing I'm still experiencing that adventure, that odyssey, even right now.
Yes.
Even 50 years later, I have many instruments that I collected when I was in Africa during that time, that I'm still being able to play.
Yeah.
And so I collected a lot of instruments. I collected art, costumes, but of course, some of the costumes have kind of wore out over the 50 years.
Yeah.
But my sense of African rhythm, my sense of African community, how music always related to helping with the community. The African musicians were the griots.
Yes.
Basically being the chroniclers of African history and of society.
Yes.
So I consider myself an African American griot.
Yes, indeed.
An American griot, and I actually have when I'm doing my theatrical presentations, I have a show called An American Griot: The Life and Times of a Jazz Musician.
Yes. It's a fantastic show. I saw it off Broadway in New York. Just amazing. And speaking of seeing your shows, I was blessed to be able to travel all the way to Amsterdam to see you headlining the Les Guess Who Jazz Festival. But more than that, I was humbled and moved to tears to see the celebration that they bestowed upon you by chronicling your entire 50-year history in life-size exhibition form on 4 floors. I mean, just floor after floor of Idris Ackamoor. I was honored. So let me right now just say, full disclosure, audience, Idris is my cousin.
Yeah.
So, let me just get that out the way. So when like our fathers are brothers, okay?
Absolutely.
That's right.
Uncle Bo, and I remember going
Uncle
out
Ernie.
House. You were on the steps. You were a teenager when I came by that time. So
Sharp as all get out, because everything he wears is from Europe. Okay, because after spending so much time there, I was like, oh my gosh, I just love what he's wearing. So that was my first indelible impression of him. And because of you, I went ahead and studied abroad.
Wow.
When I went to Madrid, remember that?
Yes.
But when you told me that you were going to Amsterdam, I thought, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to be able to make it. But when you ended up on the New York Times in the Sunday Arts and Leisure section, I said, girl, get your butt over there and go see what your cousin is doing. And I was so happy to be able to do that. Quiz, you could throw up this photograph, this little video clip of it. And what I was amazed at, cuz, is how your music transcends color, race. It is world music, and it is received well by people of the world. And I've seen you off Broadway. I've seen you in Chicago. I've seen you down south, and I've seen you at family reunions perform. And now I've seen you internationally, and the top of my head was blown open to see people grooving and moving and jamming to your music. And I don't think that I just got all warm and fuzzy and teary because it was just something so beautiful to see. How do you feel when you're up there?
Well, it was just wonderful being able to hang out with you, because you're one maybe the only relative that actually was able to see me in my element in Europe.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has the opportunity to get on a plane and go over to Europe, and it just coincided so well, because I know you were also visiting one of your very good friends. But boy, I can still remember we were walking down the plaza, and I saw you and your friend and her husband walk by, and I just jumped out, came out at the door, which was the artist entrance at the performance venue and say, "Hey, what's up? What's up?" And just being able to hang out with you that afternoon and have lunch, it was just extraordinary.
It
So
was.
and you cannot imagine how the supportive feeling of having you be there, because it was at the same time like, you know, I was there for a week in residence. So preparing for the show and then having it happen on that Saturday night. Yes, you know, you're always nervous before you go. I always get nervous before I go.
Okay.
You know, you always do. But it was an amazing house. It was like in this 2,000 seat auditorium. Many of like the Rolling Stones and David Bowie had performed there in the past. You know, and then all of a sudden we have this sea of people.
Yes.
And you know, we had to really throw down, as they say. And,
you threw down.
And we threw down.
You threw down.
Yeah.
Let me just say, and I am a music aficionado. You threw down, and and my friend Linkola, she just looked at me and said, "Oh my gosh, your cousin's a superstar." I said, "I know." I see.
Yeah.
So I just think that what you've done collectively, and not only that, I want you to give a word of wisdom and advice to people who are thinking that they can't be an artist for their career because this is the only work you've ever done.
Yes.
And I think that all by itself is extraordinary.
Yes. I think that I'm actually writing a book on, never had a day job, you know, and I never had a day job in that sense. And I also have a seminar called "Don't Drop Dead on Stage."
Come on.
a performing and a musician's survival guide. And, you know, I just kind of feel like, I feel as if I'm kind of a messenger, you know, and for some reason at an early age, I was getting these messages that this is how I can survive as an artist, as a musician.
Yes.
And I was one of the first, when I came back from my year abroad, the band, the Pyramids, we were one of the first in that wave of artists to self-produce our own albums. We produced our own albums, we distributed them, we financed them on what little, income that we had. A lot of the financing came through myself, and we basically self-produced 3 albums in the 70s. In 1973, we did Lalibela. In 1974, we did King of Kings. And in 76, we did Birth Speed Merging. But the idea that we could do this, and I knew nothing about that. Now, the college never taught us anything about music business.
How about that?
You know, it taught you how to play your instrument. It taught you European harmony, and even, you know, we even got a knowledge from Cecil Taylor, who was in residence for 2 or 3 years at Antioch. But no one told you, well, how do you make a living after you get out of college? So I had to learn all this on my own. But yeah, so we were the first. We were DIY before anyone knew what that term meant. Do it yourself before anyone knew that term. So it seems like I was always making, quote unquote, the first. I was the first to self-produce and distribute our albums. I was also the first of being one of the first jazz musicians to start her own nonprofit 501c3 organization. I started Cultural Odyssey, which is Idris Ackamoor and Cultural Odyssey, which was an extension of the Pyramids in 1979.
Wow.
The Pyramids were basically formed in 1972. They disbanded in 1977. So for 2 years, I was like just wondering, well, what am I going to do? I had to sometimes pawn an instrument, wasn't making any money, but I had the epiphany in 1978, early 79, that a jazz musician should start their own nonprofit 501c3 organization, the same way that symphonies are 501c3, or operas, or ballets. But Black musicians and jazz musicians generally weren't doing that. An individual jazz musician was not doing that. We had maybe I can remember the JCOA, which I learned, Jazz Composers Orchestra Association. They were a distribution nonprofit centered in New York that started around that same time, 77, 78 in that area. But an individual musician starting their own 501c3, that just was unheard of.
Wow.
You had in Chicago, you had the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. That was a whole organization that started around maybe maybe they were started around 67, 68. But I was an individual jazz musician.
That is awesome. You said that you are writing this book about survival tips as an artist, as a musician. What are the top 3 survival tips that you can share with us?
Well, I was just thinking about that this morning, and I was talking to my friend Bobby Cobb, my guitar player. And one of the biggest mistakes that musicians make is being paid under the table. 95, 98% of musicians think, well, I'm gonna get this job, I'm gonna do a gig, I'm gonna do a club, and hey, just pay me under the table. I want cash. But in reality, you are basically, when you're doing that, you are messing up your opportunity for retirement.
Come on.
Because as long as you're getting paid under the table, you're not taking out Social Security. I have had Social Security taken out of my checks with Coach Rossi now for 40 years. Meaning right now, I'm making close to $40,000 a year just in Social Security. And that, musicians, they don't understand that when you are getting paid under the table, you're not taking out Social Security.
Yes.
You're not taking out taxes, any of those things.
Well, I'm trying to avoid it.
Yeah, you're trying to avoid it.
Yes.
For the now.
That's right. What's number 2?
Okay, number 2, I would say number 2 is basically lifelong learning. Lifelong learning. As I said, musicians immediately, they want to practice their instrument. You got musicians that want to practice their instrument, 8 hours a day, 5 hours, whatever it might be. But you have got to basically be in lifelong learning throughout your life.
Okay.
And consequently, that's the only way that you can stay abreast of these updated these trends. An example is, well, I tell you one thing for sure. Number 2 is like, become registered as a composer and a publisher.
There you go.
Composer and a composer and
that's
publisher.
The money.
That's where the money is.
That's the money. That's right. What's number 3?
Well, number 3, I would imagine, number 3 would basically be, I'd have to think a little bit about that.
Well, tell me this. The good doctor wants to know, Idris, how have you maintained your physicality? What is it that you do for your health, for endurance, and to stay well?
Well, I guess number 3 is health. You got to stay on top of your health. Fortunately, one of the things when I have a organization, nonprofit organization for decades, I was basically, Coach Rossi paid my health insurance for decades.
Okay.
Through my company.
There you go.
I've had the same primary care physician for many decades. I'm a Black woman doctor. I just came yesterday. I just came for my annual physical at Kaiser. I've been with Kaiser for many decades.
Let me ask you this. What is the one thing that you say, I must do this every day for my health? The one thing.
Well, I have been stretching and doing my morning exercises every day now for years and years and years.
Okay.
One of the first things I do is I get up and I do these exercises that I have learned that helps to strengthen my back, that helps to, number 1, keeps me in shape. Even if I do it for like 20 minutes, I do it every day.
Good for you.
And I do it on the road. I do it because all it takes is a little space. I can do it in my hotel room.
There you go. Because
So,
I will tell y'all audience that he's right about stretching that back, because he take that saxophone and wear way back here. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's gonna break his back. But okay, now that's the
yeah,
secret.
yeah.
You have
I've had back issues before I started doing this. I was having some back issues, but thank God, I haven't had these stretches allow me not to have it.
okay. And the last thing that I want to talk about is you have had longevity with the same record label for a very decades, Strut Records.
Yeah.
And now you are still relevant with them, and you are coming out with a double vinyl album. Tell us about it.
I'm coming out with Afro Futuristic Dreams. And Afro Futuristic Dreams is a double vinyl album, and it's going to be released mid-July. And yes, I've been with Strut. This will be my fourth release. I released in 2016, I did We Be All Africans on Strut. That was a single vinyl. In 2017, I did An Angel Fell. In 2019, Shaman. And now this is Afro-Futuristic Dreams. And Afro-Futuristic Dreams is different from all the other albums I've done because I'm using a string quartet. I'm also using an additional horn section of trombone and trumpet and vocalists. So it's an amazing piece. And I'm also collaborating with Bandcamp, which is a global sensation for musicians. That's what I was going to say. The number 3 was you got to get a musician's got to be connected with Bandcamp. If you're not connected with Bandcamp, you don't have a career, really. I mean, you have to, because Bandcamp is a global phenomena for physical sales of albums and CDs and fans. So Bandcamp is partnering with me and Strut for this release. And we're going to have on July, I think it's going to be 16th, we're going to have a live stream of a 4-camera shoot that they did of my quartet band. That's going to also have an interview I was interviewed by a music writer named Marcus Crowder on music business, on my career. So it's 20 minutes of the interview and then an hour show.
I love it. I love it. And then you're going to be touring intermittently. And I'm going to have your links down below so people can catch up with you wherever you are.
I'm coming to Philadelphia.
Yes, you are.
And New York. I'm coming to Philadelphia to perform at Solar Myths on September 14th and September 15th and 16th. And I'm going to be at Public Records in Brooklyn. I remember coming to New York and staying with you years ago in Brooklyn when you were in Brooklyn.
Throwing you parties.
Yes, throwing parties all with me and Rodessa.
Rodessa Jones, y'all remember her? She's a friend to the show. She's been here.
Yes.
Idris, I just want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for sharing with us about your extraordinary career and the things that you have done. And thank you for being an inspiration to us all.
Well, LaJoyce, thank you so much for having me. I love you, and I'm so proud of you because you're a role model.
Oh, thank you. I love you, honey. Love you, cousin.
You're absolutely a role model.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
I'm so proud of you. Yes.
Thank you for being here. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. I'd like to thank supervising producer, IW, technical producer, Chris Green, and our announcer today, Chris Brown. I want to remind you to do something extraordinary. Okay? Until next time, don't forget to let your eyes shine, cut back on the wine, get good food fast, and go easy on the greasy. I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, here to help you attain and maintain your perfect health. Let's do it again, okay? God bless you.